Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 Weeks to a More Purposeful You. Corry Mendoza here, and I have Ray Weaver joining us today. Ray, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
I'm really thrilled to have you. And for those of you, a little background on, I met Ray. He and I were co-facilitating. Actually, no, I met you first in a coaching training at UC Davis.
Mhm.
And he went through that training. So after retiring from the military of how many years?
30.
30 years. So 30 years of lots of leadership and military experience, got into coaching. And then we ended up having the opportunity to co-facilitate emotional intelligence. I think it was 3 days.
I think it was 3 days worth.
Yeah,
Yes.
that 3 days in Northern California. And just what a gift meeting Ray has been, not only during that season of us co-facilitating together, but just as our coaching businesses have grown. And there's been many, personal moments where you've just poured into my life, and especially at a critical time in my motherhood. So I'm always like so grateful for you with that. But for those of you that don't know Ray, he has a really, really long bio that I'm going to spend many minutes reading. Just kidding. I love Ray's bio. It's probably the best one that I've ever read. So Ray Weaver is a father, husband, and grandfather of his first grandson, 2-year-old Zane, and that's
Yes.
so exciting. Ray has worn many hats in his life and currently serves as a consultant and coach for emerging leaders in the public sector. So that's a little bit about Ray. That's pretty cool to get to the place in your life where you're like, this is my bio. And like, what is it like to be able to just connect with yourself and your bio in that way? That's a unique place to be.
Well, I think that's a choice that we all kind of have to make. And that kind of gives us the capability to kind of be able to do the work that's what's ever before us. Is getting that center. What I'm finding is that the more simple you make things, the more time you have for others and the more time you have for just being available for the right things.
Mm. I'm writing that down. You said the more simple you make things, the more
You're available and you have the time to be available for others and for doing the right things.
yeah.
What we've done a lot of times in life that limits our some are capable. We're doing too much sometimes in the sense of everything we bring in brings complexity. And there's a strategic question out there, and you've read The Coaching Habit, and I love that strategic question. If you're going to say yes to something, what are you going to say no to? And much of what's challenging for us when we're trying to do the things that we feel that we're purposed to do, or that we have a legacy for leaving, because purpose is usually when you're younger and legacy is kind of when you're older. That we sometimes don't let things go, and we don't realize that those seasons have passed and you can kind of let things go. And some of the seasons that have passed with me is all the titles and all the awards and all the recognition, because it's all waning. As I heard once, someone says that if you live long enough, eventually life's going to trash your trophies.
That's good.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to just stop taking notes and listen to this again, because everything coming out of your mouth is gold. So, and
Thank you.
and
Thank
and
you.
I forgot to introduce the topic because I got so excited to connect with you. So our topic today is capability, and
Mm.
and everything you've been saying really does tie right into it. So I'll start with the question I always ask at the beginning is, what did you get from this topic, or how would you summarize capabilities topic?
The capability is understanding that we all have the capability to do a lot of things, but we just kind of have to get out of our own way to be able to do it. And much of that out of our own way is really what I call uh, managing your thoughts or self-authoring your mind. In the sense of, I'll throw this kind of a coachy question out there, is what I'm always kind of exploring a little bit is, how does my thoughts behave and are they useful?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times to us moving toward things, we we first have to kind of get our minds right to going, okay, is this the right thing to do? What is it that I really want to get done? What is the kind of the end goal there? But also what we're having to be aware of is some of those, as my coach supervisor calls the ancestors that come with us, all our experiences and all the rest of that stuff that may have been counter to us moving forward. And we got all these things kind of rolling around in our heads. And so in that we see things as we are, but not as they are. And so now the biggest challenge for us a lot of times reaching our capabilities is in between our ears, just stopping and make sure we're processing things the right way, and we're actually seeing things in the actuality of what they are, and then we can figure from there how to work the challenge to get past it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you mentioned don't let, or you talked about letting things go.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't write it down, but you had mentioned right at the beginning something about just letting things go, and I feel like that ties into like what you're saying, the thoughts in between our ears, like the ancestors or the past experiences we bring with us. So yeah, so for us to reach our capabilities, how do you personally let narratives and thinking patterns go?
Well, much of it is just being aware of what just being aware of my thinking. How is it, and how, every thought, how is it making me feel? What is it trying to tell me? So, in the sense of, from the kind of neuroscience perspective of it, is understanding that our feelings are our conscious awareness of our subconscious emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that these emotions, fear and all that stuff, they're perceptions. So they're not out there. Fear ain't out there trying to run around, jump on you or anything. It's created in your mind. So much of it, and it's created by the story you tell yourself about what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And you've probably heard the axiom that we never respond to what we see or hear. Again, we never respond to what we see or hear. What we're responding to is the story we tell ourselves about what we see or hear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So much of our the challenge for us is tell ourselves a story, or give ourselves permission to think another way to overcome a certain barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when what I realize when I'm thinking about something that's really challenging to me, what I realize is I'm trying to take it in the bigness of it all. Mm-hmm. And so what I have to stop is I kind of go back and say, okay, what one step or what one thing can I do that'll move me a little closer to where I want to be? So it kind of allows me to break things down and put things and kind of put things in season, or put things in order to allow me to get to where I want to get to. It's like, say somebody wants to be a doctor. Okay. There's things to be a doctor. You got to go through school. You got to go through this. You got to go through that. But every doctor started with signing up for one class.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you ain't signed up for any class, or you haven't looked at what school you want to go to, that's one step that you can take to move you forward. But a lot of times people look at all the other things of how I'm going to pay for this, how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do that, instead of stopping first and say, okay, what do I have in my hand? And what could I start with right there? And then move forward. And then as we go through, we figure out other things along the way.
No, that's really good. So how do you raise awareness for yourself?
I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of paying attention to what my body's trying to tell me, and so I have to kind of allow myself to slow down. When I get the sense that everything's getting kind of hectic and all that stuff, I just step back and say, okay, let me take a breath here. Let me slow down a little bit, and let me kind of take stock of what's really going on here. And so one of the questions I'm always asking myself is, what's kind of the real challenge here for me, or what is really at the core of what's generating this feeling I'm having? So I can stop and kind of pull it apart a little bit. Then once I get a better understanding from that, now I know how to navigate that. And now I can take small little steps to navigate that. So just really kind of getting to know yourself, really paying attention to how you're thinking, and just acknowledging too that some capabilities you may not have right now. You may have to grow up. You know, and there is no growth without being challenged. So whenever you think it's just going to come easy, you know, it's not going to come easy. You know, I was watching a story the other day about some of the singers from the past, like Whitney Houston, all the rest of that stuff, and just the work she did to get to where she was at. Singing in clubs, singing in choirs, singing, I mean, and it was, and also all the professional development that she had behind the scenes that no one knows. If you want to take a look at, say, in golf, I like golf. So if you look at the story of Tiger Woods, the stuff, you know, he had to go through to get to that level. And so in that, you know, when you look at all these the people who are out in the public now, it seems easy because they go, oh, they're just a flash. Oh, they're just, but you don't realize the work that went behind of learning their skill, learning their craft, lessons, all these other pieces and bits and pieces that go along with it that sometimes we don't see.
Oh, well, it's like, even, you know, you being a guest on the show, and even our opening conversation, something so, I know people listening are going to that very first thing about where's the right word? The more simple you make your life, the more available you'll be for other people. And there's just so many people, you know this, you work with these emerging leaders. It's like the pressure, the 50, 60-hour work weeks, the challenge with work-life balance. Like, so here you are in your beginning legacy versus stage. What would you tell your younger self when you weren't in this legacy perspective, when you didn't realize that eventually you would get there? Like, if you could go back, what would you encourage the younger Ray?
One thing I would encourage is be careful with this idea that there's work-life balance. Because since I was 18, I can ask anyone out there who's listening, since you're 18, when have you had balance? So I'm more about work-life choices. And so at certain seasons in your life, what I call, you know, certain times in your life, you're making the choices to move yourself forward. And it goes back to the strategic question. If I'm going to say yes to this, what may I have to say no to? And so, you know, it's always a trade-off. And we get this, well, I can do everything. And I always say, well, you may be able to do, but you're not going to be able to do everything at the same time. No, I can do anything. Well, yeah, but you're not going to be able to do anything and everything at the same time. And so in that, it's a kind of stepping back from it and really, hey, am I making the choices that's going to help me move to where I'm trying to get to? And that's what I would do, is get out of this idea that it's some kind of balance when it isn't. And because when you're trying to balance, like, to me, you add so much complexity and you're carrying so much weight. When you're having, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to kind of set this aside. And it may be as simple as, hey, if I want to study or rest, I'm not going to be able to every night come home and sit in front of Netflix and veg. No, I mean, that sounds great, but those little things, and it's all small little things that may be getting in your way, that are just small habits that you're trying to do, but you got to say, okay, hey, something's got to give. And it's, you know, you may have to have different conversations. You may have to take a look at, hey, who can I actually get me to support to help me do these things and watch my kids, watch this, because everything's going to have to be a trade-off. You're not going to be able to do it all. So that work-life balance thing, it is something that I've really realized that for me does not exist. It's about work-life choices.
Right. And I like what you're saying about choosing the choice to, like, am I making choices that help me reach my full potential or reach my capabilities? And sometimes those choices for us to reach our capabilities, will cause us to experience an imbalance, but it's for that season to move us forward. And then all of a sudden we get acclimated and it doesn't feel like such a stretch.
Yeah. And that's why I'm trying to get rid of the word balance altogether. Because it, these are choices that we're making. Everything we do is a choice. And so in that, we understand for every choice, everything we say yes to, there's a no we're going to have to say along with it. If not, we're just going to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and truly what balance is a continual counterbalancing. Like, like as a dancer, we see a ballerina balancing, twirling, but the truth of the matter is her muscles are continually counterbalancing. So it's just can we keep the counterbalancing going without us toppling over? Because when we topple over, then we couldn't handle the weight of all the different demands and the pulls.
Well, I can see how you can see it that way, and but it all and all that with that dancer, I understand she did all the work to choose to be able to be that dancer. And if you think about the dancer, there's a lot of other choices that went along with the ability to be able to stand and hold that balance.
Yeah. Well, and even the choices of, okay, I'm not going to be hanging out with my friends after school. I'm going to go to my classes. At the top of the message on capability, it says treat people as if they are what they ought to be, and you can help them become what they are capable of becoming. So let's kind of shift gears in this topic on capability and talk about, we can call it leadership, or we can call it influence, we can call it relationship, but how do we help others, or how do you help others reach their capabilities? What are some best practices?
That's a big question. So let me kind of look at this, and part of that is I don't try to play rescuer. And I think you had that in your thing. I try not to play rescue, and where in the past I have played rescuer, and I can admit that. And so I've kind of got out of that rescue mode and realized that people don't need to be rescued. They may need to be supported and assisted, but they don't need to be rescued. And it's kind of one of those things. I can assist and help someone who don't want to be helped or assisted, because if I'm trying to help and assist someone who don't want to be, now I'm trying to rescue them. And I don't see them as whole and capable of making their own choices or making decisions that may be right for them. And as we start talking, now I'm judging them as we're talking about what should be, what shouldn't be. They should be doing this, they should be doing that. And so sometimes one thing I find that how I really kind of help and assist people is when they're ready for help and assistance, they'll ask for it. And so even if I ask, hey, what can I do for you? And I stay curious instead of thinking I'm going to do this, I'm just going to do because this is what you need, because this is what I want. And so partly just kind of stepping back, staying curious, kind of, hey, how can I support you? What do you need? And then also kind of helping them think through things by just kind of being more curious. Hey, what's the challenge for you? What does success look like to you? What's your definition of it? And so it's now allowing them to come to some kind of clarity of where they're going for it. And sometimes when what I find is when I'm working with some of my junior clients, just helping them define one choice that works for them. That opens up something once they define how I can make a choice and now I can operate my autonomy. Then, okay, now what's the next choice? Okay, what's the next choice? And also understanding too, as we were talking about, for every choice, there's going to be something that goes along with that. We're going to have to kind of process through and kind of help you break a few habits maybe that may be challenging for you to operate in that new choice.
Oh, that's so good. So I hear you saying that to support other people reaching their capabilities, it's a tricky dance to stay out of rescuing and judging.
Yeah.
And once you're clear that you're not rescuing, you're not judging, you're sure that you're not, because they actually want to step into greater capability. It's what they want. It's not what you're wanting for them. You're like, I'll want it with you, but not for you.
Well, my hope for everyone is that that they will find some peace and their definition of success, and they can get there. That's my hope for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they may choose to do, what they choose, it ain't for me to say, oh, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. If that's what they choose to do, but now we can kind of hold a little space to let them kind of explore it. They kind of go, okay, hey, what does that look like? Now let's step back. If that's what it looks like, okay, where does there look like? And
Mm-hmm.
now we got to go back, okay, what does here look like?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do we need to do to bridge that gap from here to there? Okay. And
Exactly.
kind of helping them kind of process through the gap analysis, help them get to where they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And as they are moving towards that desired outcome, their capabilities start to show up, because
Right.
that's when we start to hit our limits and areas for improvement and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So we'll that's all part of growth, and as you've probably heard it before, there is no growth without challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to be challenged, and for everything that you're learning new, everything you develop new, there's going to be a time where it's going to get worse before it gets better, because you're going through all this learning process, but also in the learning process, you're also having to unlearn, and that's the challenge with learning.
Oh, that's so, will you say more about that? Like in the learning process, we have to unlearn.
We have to unlearn because we have some certain habits or way we view the world or perspective that may be challenging us moving into this new space. And
Mm-hmm.
so in that, there may be some things that we have to unlearn, and sometimes things we have to unlearn, or maybe some things people said about us when we were young, or all these things that cloud our vision, cloud our who we are. And we're now having to deal with all these things, and we got certain habits of how we're always experienced the world that we're having to kind of work through. And there are going to be times where we're going to go back that way. Then we have to stop and go, okay, all right, I took 2 steps back. Okay, let me take another 3 steps forward. Okay, I step back. Okay, let me and so these things are going to be balancing, because we all got programming for every how many years, 18 years, 20 years being in the world, 46. We got all this programming we of how we said the world should be, and how this, and so, and all these things that affected us, and we bring all that with us.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Oh,
challenge for us is to be able to kind of let some of those things go, because they may have been good for us at the time, but not now.
mm-hmm.
And they helped us in that moment, they helped us in that time, but they may be a barrier to us now. So we're having to unlearn some of the things, the skills, or unlearn some of the behaviors, or let go of some of the acquired values that we had that may be preventing us from operating in this new place,
Mm-hmm.
this new freedom.
Yeah. So, okay, new place, freedom, and letting
Mhm.
things go. I want to touch on those three things. This morning at yoga, at the end of class, the instructor told a story about the elephant and the ropes. And there was this elephant camp, and there were these huge elephants with these tiny little ropes on their feet, keeping them in the camp. And somebody came in and was like, how are you keeping all these elephants in the camp? There's no gates, there's nothing holding them in, just these tiny little ropes. And one of the keepers said, oh, yeah, these ropes can't keep them there. But when they were babies, we tied these ropes on them, and they were strong enough back then to keep them. And since they'd just been on their ankles their whole life, they don't even try to get
Don't
out.
try.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So letting go has kind of been a little theme that's been woven into our topic of capability today. So how do you let thinking go, let narratives go? I know you mentioned awareness. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
that. What are some other best practices either you've done or you've seen in your family, your clients?
Well, in some things, first, how I let go is a part of understanding too that people in my past may not have done everything I wanted them to do, but they did the best they knew how to do for what they knew how to do.
Mhm. So some understanding, some
Mm,
forgiveness.
yeah, some understanding, some forgiveness, but not only forgiving, you forgive others, but a lot of time, what I also had to let go of is forgiving myself for how I let things affect me,
Mm,
because it doesn't exist anymore.
mhm,
But the word only exists is in my head.
mhm.
And so just kind of being aware of, am I seeing things through the capability of who I am now, or am I seeing things through the lens of who I used to be?
Ray, I'm gonna have to keep listening to this. This is gonna be on, I'm gonna be like the #1 podcast listener to this episode.
So part of what we're doing is we have a lens of who we used to be.
Yeah.
And we did the best we knew how to do for what we knew how to do. But
Mm.
now we don't realize we may have some new autonomy, some new skills, and all the rest of that stuff. And sometimes the challenge for us is something comes up and we freeze because we're seeing ourselves through who we used to be when that event happened.
Mhm.
And now we're in this new place. We have some new skills, some new abilities, but we have to be giving ourselves permission to operate in
Preach. Keep
them.
going.
So kind of in that is my kind of view, the way I say it, am I seeing myself through the lens of who I used to be, or do I see myself through the lens of who I am now, of what I have in my hand now, what capabilities I've grown and I've done now. And so that's kind of partly too, as people move into new positions, new things, all the rest of this stuff. I always remind people, everybody's hired for the potential of doing well in that way. That means that there's going to be a learning curve. And so you're coming with the potential. So sometimes what you can do is we want you to reflect on some of your past to understand, okay, hey, I'm reflecting on it going, hey, uh, 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 what does that say about me now? You know, that what did I overcome? What were some of the things that I could bring forward that can help me process through these new things that were kind of in a positive way, that I can, skill sets I've learned and all the rest of that stuff to help me process too. And then be open to, hey, okay, I don't have to know everything right away. I'm learning. And so part of that is being careful how you're telling yourself, I should know this right now. Well, who says that?
Right.
What makes you say you should know this right now when it's new? And another thing I'm learning that I'm having to learn is that you got to be careful taking yourself so damn serious. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was always tell people, you got to be careful taking yourself so damn serious. Why should everybody else have all the fun? They're laughing at you anyway. You might as well join in. They know when you don't know something. They can see it. And you can just kind of laugh at yourself and go, wow, I didn't know that. And part of it is seeing it kind of transitioning to also being careful of what you say to yourself. And for part of my development here is I used to tell myself this was hard, this was hard, this was hard. So when I kind of understand, for me, when I heard something was hard or hard, my brain would push back on it. So I shifted. I was listening to, like, so I forgot what one of the I think it was like the Olympic athletes or something. A lot of them always they don't talk about things being hard. They talk about things being challenging. And so I realized by just shifting the word seeing being challenged, my brain kind of allowed me the space to go, oh, this is a challenge. Let's figure it out. To now kind of hopefully getting to the point where I'm realizing, oh, everything's a learning opportunity.
Yes. And
now when I see everything as a learning opportunity, I can kind of laugh at certain things, and just about anything becomes funny now because I go, wow, that's a new one. Wow, that's a new one. Learn that one today. Ooh, that's a new one. And so now I'm realizing that, hey, as I'm hitting this point in this season of my life, I realize just what I don't know. And it's okay. I don't know nothing. I really don't know anything, because I had a small, if you like, say mine's leadership, but I got a small little understanding of what really leadership is, but there's all kind of other things that goes along with support and this and that goes along with that. And so part of it is kind of like, I think they said some of the best scientists, they realize they're ignorant, in the sense that they're going, hey, I don't know. And so just going, oh, I don't know, let's figure it out. Yeah. And and realize I don't have to figure it out alone. I have to stop and go, okay, who do I have around me? But to do that, you have to learn to trust others. Yeah. But that comes with you trusting you. Yeah. Trusting that you're enough, even though you don't have all the answers. And so there's a little thing I'm always helping people go through, that a little mantra I have for myself is these 3 little statements is, I am enough, I have enough, I'm okay. And so that's a little thing when I'm getting all stressed out, I'll stop and I'll just, okay, I am enough, I have enough, I'm okay. And so what I mean by I am enough is that I'm enough, even though I don't know everything to do. Because, and that I have enough is when I stop and I think about all the support that's around me, or people I can ask, or resources that are around me that can help me figure this out if I'm willing to open myself up to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's so many little things I want to like kind of
Yeah.
touch back on.
And,
So go ahead.
and then the last part is I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can stop and I can do a system check. Okay, yeah, I'm still breathing. Yeah, okay, I'm good there. I still, I still got food on the table. I still got a roof over my head. I'm kind of doing certain things, and now I can move back and just take it day by day. And go, okay, yeah. And when that fear comes, oh, well, I have enough here. Well, okay, we'll figure that out when we get there. Okay, right now this is what I can do. So let me just do this,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see if that moves it forward. If it doesn't, okay, let's try something else.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah.
So good. So a couple things I want to just repeat or kind of highlight for our listeners. One, I love the I am enough, even though
Mm-hmm.
I have enough, even though I am okay, even though. I think the even though piece is super powerful because in the self-help world, the personal development world, for a long time, there's the encouragement of having affirmations and that sort of thing. But when we don't really believe the affirmation we're trying to tell ourselves, like if I don't really feel like I am enough, and I'm like, I'm just going to say I am enough and visualize it and look in the mirror and be like, you are enough. It's like, I love the piece of even though, and then we can just add whatever the subconscious mind or the ancestors. I love that. I'm going to use that. The ancestors are telling us the past experiences. And then in addition to the even though piece, um, I loved how the self-awareness you have when you notice that a word doesn't work for you and reframing the word. So you mentioned it with the word balance and instead choices. And then you also mentioned it with this is hard, but then, getting that idea from the Olympic athletes using the word, no, this is challenging. And I think without getting caught up in the specific words, I think that's just a great tool to give our listeners to for us to pay attention. What are words that just simply don't work for us right now? They bring the wrong image, the wrong visceral reaction to us. And then what is the upgrade in a word that we can start replacing it with? And even in organizations, and I'm sure you've experienced this, the word feedback, it could cause people like, oh, because they've had so many negative experiences with it. So like sometimes we can, recreate the meaning of a word, or sometimes let's just use a different word. And I like how you did that. That's a little kind of like a little hack for you to reach your capabilities and for others to reach their capabilities. So good stuff. As we start to kind of wind down the topic on capabilities, I always like to ask, what is some best practices or advice that you are practicing and living out that maybe others can get inspiration from in terms of capability?
Well, one thing that really enhances capability actually is something as simple as a grateful diary, or a little grateful everyday little gratefulness. In a sense of, you probably heard from Sean Archer. It's a good little TED talk out there about the happiness advantage that he has. And I think he's from Harvard, but I also think he works with people from University of Pennsylvania's. I think they call it the School of Happiness or something like that. But what it is, but I think he's from Harvard. And what he talks about is every day, just think about or just write down 3 things you're grateful for. But every day it's got to be something different. And like some days I have, I'm grateful for ice because I like ice water, especially when we got 107-degree days. I'm like, man, I'm glad I got some ice water. Little things. I'm grateful sometimes for little things like a child's laughter in a restaurant. When they're really, really hitting that point where they're just screaming and then, those little small things, or for sriracha mayo, little and sometimes it could be big things, it could be little things, but it's smaller little things. And so what I realized that shifted my mind to start seeing some things before that were it opened up my mind to see other things and other possibilities. Instead of focusing on, oh, well, what don't I have? And I don't, and so now I'm realizing being grateful in what I do have. And so that understanding, and part of that is that understanding that happiness is an inside job. You can never get enough stuff to make you happy. It's happiness is really an inside job.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the one thing that as I start thinking about capabilities and all the rest of that stuff, it really starts kind of inside out.
Yeah.
And much of our challenges, we don't do the inside work along with the outside work. Because when you go up to these things, you're going to meet a lot more challenges and not more. And so can you have your mind where everything's kind of at peace, even though there may be some chaotic things going on around you. And most chaotic things don't last forever.
Even the lockdown.
Even the lockdown, hey, but
Yeah.
but in that though, if you even think about the lockdown, how many people got closer to their families?
Oh yeah.
How many people start appreciating teachers because they had to deal with their own bad kids?
Yeah. Teaching is not as easy as we can think when we don't have to do it. Yeah, no, I love that because, you mentioned a lot, it kept coming up about growth means being challenged, and just when we're pursuing our full potential and we're wondering, or we're testing what is my capability, fuel, I think this is the perfect way to close out this discussion with what you said, that gratitude is really the fuel that can give us that energy to tackle these challenges. And then when we go for it and we get out of our comfort zone, then we realize we're capable of so much more than we thought. And and combining the inside work, which is what's between our ears, the thinking, with the outside work, which is the action. So any last things?
Well, one little piece I want to throw in here too, because some of your listeners too, I just want to kind of throw kind of the equity piece in here too, because you may be having some listeners too who didn't have advantages that, I had the military advantage. So being in the military for 30 years, it's allowed me to do some things. But also, one of the reasons I went to the military is because growing up in inner city Detroit, different things had changed, factories weren't there, so I was looking for opportunities. But in that too, I want to kind of acknowledge there are some systemic things that are going on that are long-term things we're still having to work through. So I don't want to try to put a band-aid on it and say, hey, everything's a cure-all, catch-all, just because we have some real issues that everybody's going through. And I want to make sure that we're not making people not thinking that we're just trying to give some kind of fluff to say, okay, poof, everything's going to go away. Oh, and at the same time, I am saying that, hey, we may have to open up ourselves up to support, and we may have gotten to places we never thought we were going to be, and we may have to ask for support and ask for help. But it's still that's a choice. Am I willing to seek help? Am I willing to open myself up to help? And then partly for those who do have, are you willing now to look past somebody's circumstance to understand that no one really wanted to get there, but certain things in their lives and certain instances they may have went through may be totally different than yours. So your perspective of, hey, you pull yourself up by the bootstrap, do all the rest of this. Yeah. Well, that may you say that, but you don't know the support you had and the surrounding you had to be able to do that.
Well, it kind of goes back to what you were saying when we were talking about helping people reach their capabilities, and you said make sure that you're not rescuing, but make sure you're not judging. So it sounds like this last piece that you're mentioning is about, yeah, when somebody's not reaching their capability, we can't just look at it from the outside in and then project our life experiences. Like, I overcame such and such. And yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You know, and just because you see someone and it may look like someone who overcame it, doesn't mean that you don't know what this other person's been through who's finding it challenging.
Mhm.
You know.
I think this is the perfect closing because it's all about when I'm pursuing reaching my true capability, it's probably going to humble me enough to lower my energy in terms of judging others. Right? And
Yeah.
then there's going to be a two-way street of me offering support because I have compassion, because I'm humbled from all my bumps and bruises from pursuing my capability. And then it'll also humble me in terms of asking for help and support because, like you said, we can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
We're
And
not alone.
and I think the last little thing I want to kind of remind people of is this. One thing I encourage my clients is don't compare themselves to anyone else.
Mhm.
Only compare yourself to yourself the day before. Am I better today than I was yesterday?
Mm, I like that.
And so that's the only comparison. Am I better today than I was yesterday? How have I improved? How have I grown? But I'm not comparing myself to anybody else.
I love it. Stop taking yourself so damn serious and don't compare myself to the day before.
No,
Ray?
only compare
Oh yeah.
yourself to yourself the day before, but don't be compare yourself to anybody else.
Okay. Let me say that again. Make sure I imprint this on my brain.
Mhm.
Stop taking myself so damn serious. Listeners, stop taking yourself so damn serious. And don't compare myself to anyone else. Only compare myself to myself the day before. And listeners, you don't compare yourself to anyone else. Only compare yourself to yourself the day before. I love it. So good, Ray. Thank you so much for giving your time and sharing with everyone. Next week, Monday Motivations, we'll have more. Ray, have a fabulous day and thank you again.
All right. You have a good one now.